Okay, so this video is how to work with tenants part 2. Make sure you have watched part 1 before you start doing part 2. So I need to go to my KW. I'm going to go ahead and click on my transactions messages to go back into my dot loop. And I'm going to be looking for the loop I just started to be able to work with tenants. I can click on search here and put in what I think the name of the loop is, and it will go ahead and pull it up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. And so after you've shared these documents, they filled them out, what you're going to do, you're going to click on this, hit download, and then that's going to download those documents in a PDF. What you want to do is you want to go to your email, and then you're just going to compose an email and then attach those applications right there and send those over to the listing agent that way. I never added listing agents into my dot loop. It's just easier if you email it to them. And then also, not everyone uses dot loop, but everybody uses email. So just download them that way. So let's say that the agent comes back and first of all, credit checks, background checks, we do not run those. The landlord will need to. So it's nothing that we actually touch as agents, as Keller Williams agents. Now, the listing agent, depending on what brokerage they're with, they may be able to, but we're not allowed to. So if the landlord needs to get a background criminal check, credit check, what we need to refer them to is mysmartmove.com. And this is a free website for them, basically, that they can sign up, create an account, and then when they have a person who's putting an application on their property, then they can go in here to My Smart Move, put in the tenant's email address, and it will send them a link to run their background and criminal credit check, all that stuff through My Smart Move, which is a TransUnion service, and then they will get a report saying, hey, we think you should rent to these people or we think you shouldn't. And then that just kind of keeps us from being liable to be handling anybody's credit checks, background checks, anything like that. So let's say that the listing agent comes back and they said, okay, your people are accepted. So then what? So the next thing is you need to make sure that you go back to your contracts checklist and look and see what you're missing. Well, now I need the agreement between brokers. I need the lease. And if they have a pet, you're going to have a pet agreement. If it was built before 1978, you're going to have the lead-based paint notice. And if it's an agent within our own office, then you're going to have an intermediary notice as well. So let's just say I need the agreement between brokers. And it's going to be under tenant leasing. So agreement between brokers is right there. I'm also going to need the lease. Unless the listing agent sends you the lease, which hopefully they will because they have all the information to fill it out. But if for some reason they ask you to fill it out, you're going to need the lease. Let's say they have a pet. I'm going to go ahead and add those items. And just to have them all in order, I'm going to move that down. Okay. And then agreement between brokers is a document that's you're gonna send to that listing agent in order for them to pay you. So with that, you also need a W-9, and where you find that is under the MyKW website. So if you go back to MyKW and you go to Market Center Intranet, go to Market Center, Documents, and then right down here under Office Forms, it's going to be the very last document. So right here, W-9 2016. When I open it, it is already signed, fill out. All I need to do is save it to my computer and then put it in dot loop. So I'm going to save it to my desktop. If you always have one on your desktop, you're not going to have to keep going back into the Market Center to get it. But just take notice that it does change yearly, so you'll need to make sure you have the correct one. So I'm going to do add from computer. It's on my desktop. There it is right there. Hit open. And there we go. Actually, I'll go ahead and put it by agreement between brokers since they kind of go together. Okay, so now that you have all the forms you need, let's go ahead and start filling out this agreement between brokers. Again, like I said, I don't put the listing agent in there or the landlord. The listing agent can get them to sign however they want to and send it back to me via email. I'm going to hit autofill, and you're going to put the property address. So let's say that this is the property that we've got under contract now. So it's going to be 3 Sand Pebble Drive. The landlord's name, I'm going to get that off the tax record. So if I just click on this link right here, it will take me to the tax records. Okay, so here's the landlord's names right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in my dot loop in my document. So it's Anthony Kober and Jessica Kober. Okay, and then the next thing what you're going to do is you're going to find out, okay, how much are they paying your commission? So if I go back to the hard record and you scroll down right here, it says buyer agent half month, so which is 50% of 1 month's rent. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to check this box and put 50% of 1 full month's rent. Now, right here, you can go ahead and check these and put 50%, and sales, check it and put 3%. Just in case they were to renew their lease, you could potentially get paid again. Or if they bought the property, then you could potentially get paid on the sale because you're the procuring cause for the reason they're in that house. But the thing is if the listing agent didn't negotiate that with the landlord up front on their listing agreement, they're not going to agree to it. So what you can do is go ahead and put it in there. And then if they most likely they're going to come back to you and say, no, take those out, but it's worth a shot because if you don't have it, then you're definitely not going to get paid. I'm going to go ahead and put in, fill this information in. You're going to put the office address, 1401 Woodlands Parkway. Today's date, which is 2/7/16, Woodlands, Texas. Our fax number is 281-364-9971. And then you need to put in the listing broker's information too. So if I come back over here, there it is right there, Leading Edge Realty Service. So let me see if I can copy that. That popped up because I clicked on that actual broker name. It doesn't give me the license number, so you can call the agent and ask them for that information or ask them to fill it in. I'm going to go ahead and get the address. Okay, and then there's a fax number there. Like I said, I don't add the listing agents to my loop. So what I would do is I would send this to them as an attachment through email, and then they can put it in their DocuSign or whatever they use and electronically sign it or sign it by hand. I just let them do what they plan on doing with it and then send it back to me. So now we've got those two documents, or we've got the agreement between brokers. You've got your W-9. Now the lease, if they don't send it to you and they ask you to fill it out, we'll go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to fill one out. But what you would want to do is send it back to them, make sure it all looks good before you send it to your clients to sign, because if you did and then the listing agent said, hey, this isn't right, then your clients have already seen it one way and it could just potentially cause problems. So just make sure it's good with the listing agent before you have your clients sign it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start filling out this lease. Make sure you've got their names. That's correct. I'm going to hit autofill. We've got the landlords there. And we need the address, which is, close that real quick. 3 Sand Pebble. Right here, 3 Sand Pebble Drive. I'm going to go ahead and click on the tax records because we're going to need the property description as well. While that's coming up. It is the Woodlands, Texas, 77381. The property description is also, can be found right here. Woodlands Village, Indian Spring, 01 Block 1, Lot 1. I just type those backwards. So Block 1, Lot 01. Okay, in Montgomery, Texas, if they are renting out anything such as like the refrigerator, washer, dryer, any of that information, you're going to put that here. It might say so in the sheet here. Looks like Fusion is frozen on me. I'm going to have to shut that down and come back in. Okay, so to find out if they're including anything, you want to read the notes here, agent remarks, or buyer remarks, or public description. Also, if I look right down here, it says refrigerator included, washer included. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here and put refrigerator and washer. That way you're renting the property and you're renting the refrigerator and washer. So the commencement date is going to be the day they're moving in. Let's just say it's going to be March 1st. Expiration date they're moving out, we'll go to February 28th of 2017. Then when is it going to renew? After the lease automatically renews on a month-to-month basis, unless they provide written notice upon or of termination not less than. Typically, it's 30 days before expiration date. They may have you put in like check this box and put 60 days here. Notice that the BC and the SC are here. They're going to be able to electronically sign that. So right here, it says that the lease automatically renews on a month-to-month basis. It will continue to renew on a month-to-month basis and lease until either party provides written notice of termination to the other party, and the notice of termination will be effective on, typically it's this one, the last day of the month following the month in which the notice is given. If they check this one, it would be a specific day of the month. Then right here, these are the terms. So monthly rent, tenant will pay monthly rent in the amount of blank for each full month. It would be on the sheet right here is how much they would be paying in rent. So $2,500. First full month's rent is due and payable no later than the day they're moving in, which is March the 1st. And then how is acceptable? So typically monthly rent can be paid by cashier's check, electronic payment, money order, personal check. I would basically check all of them. So however the landlord wants it, that's how they can pay. And it's due on the first day of each month. Prorated rent. This would be if like they're moving in the middle of the month, there would be a proration amount. There's not one on this, but if there was, like let's say they're moving in at the end of February, what you would do is you would take that month of February, total days, divide the monthly rent by those total amount of days, and then go back and multiply how many days that they're going to be staying there. Place of payment. This is where the landlord wants the payment. So it could be their address, it could be their bank account, however they want it, that's where it's going to be in here. And this is another reason why the listing agent should fill it out, because they have all that information. Method of payment, unless the parties otherwise agree. Otherwise, the tenant may not pay rent in cash and will pay the rent by either cashier's check, electronic payment, money order, personal check, other means acceptable to the landlord. And typically, I would put the landlord may not charge a reasonable fee for the processing of it. They may come back and say, yes, they want to be able to charge a fee if the bank charges them a fee. We're going to put landlord requires that the tenant pays the rent all at once. Right here, the landlord does not actually receive the rent payment by that designated place. It would be considered late after usually the third day of the month. Then right here it's asking, well, how much is the late charge? So I'd say, let's say $50. And then an additional late charge of $20 per day after that. If there's a return payment, I would say $45, at least what the bank's going to charge them. Here is the pet. So if the tenant says there's no pets and then they end up getting a pet or bringing a pet with them, if they end up being caught, this is how much they would end up having to pay for having that pet there. So pet deposits range from all sorts of amounts. So I would say if they ended up having a pet and they weren't supposed to, it's $500, for that violation, and then $10 a day after that. Security deposit. On the sheet, it's also going to tell you how much that security deposit was, which scroll 2,200 right there is the security deposit. So we're going to put 2,200. Can be paid by cashier's check, electronic payment, money order. Typically, they don't like them in personal checks, but it's really kind of up to whatever the landlord is willing to agree to. That first month's rent check should also probably be either a cashier's check or a money order, and that's typically going to be made out to the listing brokerage because what they do with that first month's check is they split that between the two brokerages. So it'll be paid to that listing agent's brokerage. They'll cut a check to Keller Williams, and then Keller Williams will cut you a check. That's typically how it works. Now, sometimes they'll want that the listing agent to cut a check to they'll want the tenant to make the check out to the landlord, and then that landlord will pay the listing agent's broker. It just really kind of depends on what the listing agent tells you to do. Okay. If the landlord is paying any utilities, that would go here. If not, just leave it blank. Occupants, this is where you need to put all the people who will reside in that house. So I'll put Bill Cooper, put his age, let's say 39, and Susie Cooper, 38, and any children as well. Okay, guests, tenant may not, or they can't have guests for more than so many days without the landlord's written permission. I'll put 21 days here. It's usually between 14 to 21. Parking rules, tenant may not have more than, let's say, 3 vehicles. If there is a trip charge, this is how much the landlord would charge if the tenant needed them to come out and fix something, or a property management company to come out and fix something, and then they couldn't get in the house. It would be how much they would charge that tenant for just coming out there. So we'll put 65 there. That's kind of standard. Key box. So this is when the landlord wants to put a key box on the property when the lease is coming to an end, to be able to rent that property back out, and they won't lose like a whole month after the tenant moves out. So we're going to put during the last 30 days of the lease, the landlord's able to put a key box back on the property to be able to show it. And then the tenant can withdraw that key box, but they're going to have to pay 1 full month's rent, which is $2,500 in order to do so. Moving condition, this is if anything needs to be fixed in the property for them to be able to accept it. So they're accepting the property as is, provided the landlord fix whatever it is that they've agreed upon here. The tenant will complete the inventory and condition form within usually 7 days and get it back to the landlord. The lease is pretty long, so you just have to make sure you go through it carefully and you didn't miss anything. If there is rules on how you have to water the yard, that would be put in here. Sometimes it's, if we're in a drought, there's specific times and days that you can water the lawn, so that's where that would go. If the landlord is maintaining the lawn, they'll check the box here, but if it's going to be at the tenant's expense, they're going to check the box here. And then this would be if they were working with a contractor who regularly comes out to service the lawn. Make sure not to miss this. This gets missed a lot. Smoking, not prohibited. Not permitted. That is almost always. Repair request, this would be the number that they need to call for any kind of repair. So if it's being managed by the landlord, it's going to be the landlord's number. If it's being managed by a property management company, it's going to be the property management company's number. So just let's put in something fake here. Okay, so if there's any specific appliances in the house that the landlord will not fix, that's where this would go here. You don't always see that, but every now and then you will. And my guess is the reason why that's in there is, I'm assuming the landlord probably has a home warranty on the property, but some of the appliances aren't covered by that home warranty, and that's the reason they wouldn't fix them. But again, that's just an assumption. Okay, special provisions, make sure you don't insert anything other than factual statements. So usually you don't see stuff in there. But unless it's, something that needs to be added to the lease that's not already stated. Okay, subletting, usually that's not permitted, so most of the time you'll see those left blank. And then here you have the addenda. So if it needed a lead-based paint agreement, you're going to have that there. Let's see what age this house was. It was built in 1987, so we're good. If it was built in 1978 or before, then we would have to have the lead-based paint agreement. So you're going to include the pet agreement with this if they have a pet. Agreement between brokers. You already sent the residential lease application. And inventory condition form is just something that's going to need to get to the tenants after the lease is all filled out. You can go ahead and send it to them, but it's not your responsibility to get it back to the landlord. That is the tenants once they move in, take possession of the property. So this is where you would send any information to the tenants. So we just need to put their names, Bill Cooper and Susie Cooper, and put any phone numbers in for them. Landlord, put the landlord's names, phone numbers, emails. If you have the emails, you may not. The listing agent can put them in there if you don't. Right here, this is important to make sure that they put in here as well. So this would be like an emergency contact person. So if something happened to the tenants, who would be able to get into that property and access to get their stuff if, let's say, the tenants happen to pass away. they need to have somebody there that can access that property. So right here it says landlord's broker will or will not act as a property manager. You'll have to ask the listing agent if they are working or if they're going to be managing as a property manager. If not, then you'll put will not act as a property manager, and the property will be managed by the landlord. So let's just, for that example, let's put that in here. So copy that. If it is Keller Williams, our office, though they won't act as a property manager. We don't do property management. So we'll put, for this one, will not act as landlord, will act as it. If there's a property manager, you'll put the name of the property manager and the address, email, phone, all that stuff right there. And there you go. Now they can sign this. This is orange, but this is only if you were acting as a property management company. And for some reason it filled in their information. That's only if they were working as a property manager. So I'm going to take that out. Click on this, hit assign field. I'm going to put no one. So there you go. So Bill and Susie can sign it. I hit save and hit back. And then I'm going to go to the pet agreement. Autofill. So here we go. We're going to put in the type. It's a dog. Breed, let's say Yorkie. Name, Rocky. Color's going to be brown. 8 pounds. Age is 4 years old. Gender, male. Is he neutered? Yes. Is he declawed? No. Rabies? Yes. So it really just depends on, of course, just the information, whatever the dog or cat, whatever kind of pet they have, that's the information you're going to put there. So you're going to put right here, on or before the date that the tenant moves into the property, they'll pay a pet deposit of, let's put $500 there. That's it really depends on what the pet deposit is. And sometimes it'll say it on this sheet. And sometimes it doesn't. So let's see if it says anything about pet deposit. Okay. That one actually said pets not allowed. So that wouldn't be you wouldn't want to put an application on a property that says pets not allowed if you knew they have a pet. But for this purposes, we'll pretend as if it did. The monthly rent of the lease is increased too. You don't always see this, but sometimes the landlord will charge a monthly rent for the pet in addition to the pet deposit. So if so, you put that there. And if it was a non-refundable whole pet deposit, you put that here instead of checking it here. So if it was $500 non-refundable, you go check box 3 and put that in here. Disclosure concerning pet. Is a tenant aware of whether the pet described under the addendum has ever bitten or injured somebody, or if they have a tendency to do so? Oops, I'm sorry. You don't want to check yes unless that's true. Check no. Same thing here. Special provisions. Let's say that they said the pet deposit is $500, $250 of which is non-refundable. I would put that in the special provisions and say pet deposit is, or let's just put it this way, $250 of the pet deposits is refundable. That way, when they move out, they do have a chance of getting that $250 back. Okay, it's got their initials. Again, if the landlord's working as a proper, or the listing agent was working as a property management, or there's a property management company, to put that here. Hit save and back. Okay, so now that all that is done, what I would do is, again, before you send it to your tenants to get them to sign it, you're going to go ahead and download all this information, send it over to the listing agent in an email as an attachment, just like we did with the applications. Let them review the lease and make sure it all looks good. If anything needs to be changed, you can change it and send it back to them. And then if they say yes, everything's good, you'll get your tenants to sign the lease and pet agreement. Again, all you do is put a check mark next to those, hit share, and then they can sign, type them a little message, show options, and attach PDF to email and hit share. And then once you do, it'll say waiting on others in yellow here. And then once they've signed, it'll say signed. So once that's been signed, you can send it back over to the listing agent. Again, you just have to download right here, send it in an email as an attachment, and then they can get the landlords to sign, send it back to you. And once that's done, then the lease is official, and they, at that point, then they're just waiting to move in. Um, and then checks will need to be gotten to the listing agent. And then you just really just communicate with that listing agent on how best to work all that out, and as far as them picking up keys and all the details. So that's how you work with tenants. Make sure to watch video 1 and 2 to be able to see the whole thing.